Okay, here we go.
Test, 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 test.
Roll music?
Let's roll it.
Welcome to the Unknown Morning Show.
It's the show where we explore radio,
Podcasting,
TV,
gear,
gearheads,
and making money with a hot mic and other stuff too.
This is the Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
For me, when I got into real estate, the hard part was trying to get my routine together.
100%.
Because if you're doing something at the house, it's hard to get a routine together, per
It
se.
is.
And I need a routine. I'm very routine driven.
Yep.
So I have to have that.
So do you
going
have to
the
work the
office-
list on a daily basis, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't have my list here with me, but I've got a list that I'll make out every day.
Yeah.
You know, but there's a lot of yeah, we can talk about that. That's a whole thing in itself.
Yeah, yeah. We can get into it if you want
Yeah.
to.
Whatever you want. I'm just happy to be here. So
Are things going?
It's going. I went ahead and turned it on to make sure I had levels, and we got
we
levels.
were talking, Mandee, about, time for a public affairs message here.
What?
Yes, here on the Unknown Morning Show. And I want to address this to those of you that shave.
Oh, dear.
Men, women, dogs, I don't care. You shave, don't do it at 6 a.m. because the results can be disastrous. Thank you.
that's right.
Okay, and moving on.
Especially
Okay.
6 o'clock during the winter when it's still very much dark.
What I sat there, Doc, 2 days ago, and I'm like, and I go, oh, you used the wrong attachment. It got too close to me. So
Oh, yeah, you were wrong guard.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Here on the Unknown Morning Show, we get our subjects in the chair, do a little research. And with Doc Deason, good morning, Doc.
Morning, sir.
You're kind of like, and I wrote this line down, the Swiss Army knife of human beings. You're the owner-operator of Real Edge Real Estate, right?
I'm an agent there. I'm not the owner.
You're
but
not
I
the
am,
owner.
No, but I am I'm one of the agents there.
You're one of the
Been there for a
agents.
good while too.
Internet weather guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My wife watches you all the time. I do too.
Thank you.
Are you still doing mobile DJ?
A little bit, not much. I tell people now, used to we played for everybody. We did. Gosh, you know how that is, Mandee.
I stopped.
You did. I almost have stopped. So I mean, back in the day, you're playing high school dances, you're playing sock hops, you're playing bar mitzvahs, you're playing weddings. Now I just tell people that I play for grown folks. I don't play for kids. We don't do weddings. We just strictly play for specific audiences because
You know that music.
I know that music.
When you
And
get
I
the
have
kid
checked-
stuff, you have to edit.
I've checked out of everything really 2015 and beyond. And that in the 2015, that's really probably stretching it. It's probably more, 2005.
I don't feel bad. Same here. Same here.
Yeah. So I do a little bit of that, but not much.
And let me point this out. I believe I saw this right. Skywarn 2023 Spotter of the Year.
Yeah, from the Weather Service. Yeah.
Excellent.
I was really honored by that, by the way. That was
My
really fun.
my wife back in the day, she hasn't had her active weather card as far as being a spotter and everything. And she could, she'll sit there and point. You see these clouds? And I'm like, yeah. Because there's been many times it'll be like, she'll hold her phone up and go, okay, these are lightning strikes. Do you see this red line? That's bad. I go, okay.
I love Rosie.
I once, my standard line, Doc, for decades almost was like, if a tornado lands on the loop, I'll be concerned. Mm-hmm. That line was retired about 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Remember the night where TJC down by, we had the tornado that hit Tyler and was down by TJC?
Yes.
We were in our house, the sirens are going off, and I thought,
Oh, so much for that.
That's
so much for that. We could check that off the bucket list.
that's going by the wayside.
Yes.
And you know what? And of all the things we were looking at, of course, a lot of us of a certain age encountered you as a young broadcaster. 96X, I remember you the best. But you were part-time on KNUE with us, weren't you, for a while?
Well, I was, my first paid job in radio would have been in 1990 at KDOC, back when it was on Front Street. Do you remember that at all, Mandee? Okay. Chuck, do you remember when KDOC was on? Who were 1330? It was the AM sites, the original KDOC frequency and call letters back then.
Okay.
So I got a job there.
And you were spinning the hits at the time?
I was a board op.
Okay.
So we ran Houston Astros, Houston Oilers, We did SMU athletics as well, and so I was a board up. I'd just gotten out of high school.
You basically had to get the ID on and not
and not
blow the
screw
place
it up, not
yeah.
blow the place up.
Yep.
Hopefully, there's no smoke or a blaze.
Those are the earliest lessons that we have.
So much fun though.
You'll have the program director look at you and say, "Doc, just don't screw up." Yes, sir. And
Yes, sir.
Then you go on to other things. but okay, so I remember you mostly from 96, and for some reason my most vivid memory of you is in a particular situation, and forgive me for bringing this up, because Kenny and I, when Kenny Smith was here, we talked about it. It was when J.D. Patrick passed.
Yeah, I remember that.
And there was the shows during the week in which they were salute shows to J.D.
Yeah.
But I believe, I know you were in the studio with me. I think John Moore that morning, Jana, probably Kenny.
Yeah,
But
Kenny would have been there. John Sims.
But that's what I remember most about you. But, the old 96 days. And like I told Kenny, I still hold a grudge against, not really against Town Square, but when they took him off 96. I loved Kenny Smith on
was great.
Saturday afternoon on 96.
Yes. Yeah.
It was kind of like, your guy sitting there having something to drink, relaxing, telling you Hotel California's coming up, and you'd go, "Of course it is. I'm not worried."
Of course. I was never concerned.
I loved listening to Kenny on the air too. There was one day, and I know how radio is programmed. I know the playlists are what they are. It's not the DJ that's, controlling it. Not like at a gig, like a live gig, right?
Yeah.
But man, I was driving to my dad's house for Tyler to Longview one Saturday afternoon, and 96 was jamming, and Kenny was on the air, and I shot him a text message, and I was like, "I know you're not controlling the music, but what you're saying in between, it's just firing on all cylinders." It was so good.
Well, you've got people like that who have that ability. That's not just something that falls out of the sky. You've got people like Kenny and you, Chuck.
I just talk.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. I mean, I've had
know.
people say, "Oh, I like your voice." And I go, I don't know, man. I've been talking for 40 years and they still let me around. And
I know, and that's
I have
why
coffee privileges. And
that's why you've been talking for 40 years, because they want to hear what you have to say.
thank you so much
Yeah.
for the compliment. So how does a person, your dad, and did I read that? I mean, I was well aware, obviously, that your dad, Jim Deason's Pharmacy on 64, right? 64?
Yep, 64.
Okay, so were you a pharmacy kid, PK? Did you hang out there with Dad?
All the time. We spent more time probably at the pharmacy, or as much time at the pharmacy as we did at the house.
And so you helped a lot around there with Dad and Mom and
Yeah,
stuff.
we would, the radio was always on at the pharmacy. We took a lot of deliveries to people. Dad would go through delivery folks who would come and help. A lot of times it was, a high school age kid who had their license, and they could go around and they could take medicine to folks who were not nearly as old as I thought they were whenever I was young, because I'm that old now. And so, wow, they couldn't have been that old, but they were.
Ya.
They seemed that way anyway. And so we were in the car a lot, especially at night. If we would lose a delivery person, then Dad and Mom would take the deliveries, and they're not leaving half an eye at home. So we're getting in the car and we're driving around at all hours of the night at all different locations and, doing our thing. But we spent a lot of time together, all that to say.
So you're in the store, you're in your dad's pharmacy, and the radio's going. Was there any I would call it radio mysticism? You're listening, you're staring at the radio, and you're thinking, that would be interesting. Did you ever have any of those moments as a kid?
I did. I sure did. When I was sitting in my bed, I was probably one of my earliest recollections, probably 5 or 6, and I had a little blue radio that sat next to my bed.
That was my next question.
Yeah, it was about as tall as a Yeti and about 6 to 8 inches wide. And I heard this guy come on talking about the weather.
Oh.
The seeds.
And it was Dr. Bob Peters. Mm-hmm. And I was like, how is that guy able to shrink down and get in? I'm 5, mind you. Get in my radio and talk. Because I had no concept that he was, at his house or in a studio or something. I'm just, where's this little man coming from who's able to talk to me about the weather? So that was a huge seed that was planted. That and radio.
You do radio. And so when did you have the inclination to go, not that weather's interesting and this is Dr. Bob, but you're going to go, I'm going to make a jump to do TV weather. How do you make that leap? And where do you go to do that? Where do you study to do weather?
Well, I was at KNUE at the time. Was doing middays. Well, Amy Austin brought me in to do overnights at KNUE in like 97, I think it was.
America's Sweetheart.
Love Amy Austin.
Yeah. Okay, then I was gone. I think I was gone when you were
gone.
And
Robert was, or Bob was doing evenings.
Yes.
And they needed somebody to do overnights. I guess this was all pre-profit systems, computer, all that mess. That's a whole other.
I think what they were probably doing is playing the commercials digitally, but I
think we.
But playing CDs?
We had those Denon CD players, which, man, when I saw one of those for the first time, I heard the Hallelujah chorus, because you see those types of things and man, this is serious, So I was at 96X, I was doing middays at 96, and then Amy called and she said, hey, would you want to do overnights at KNUE? And I'm thinking, wow, when do I start? Because, that was just that was, in my opinion, that was the big one, Yeah. So absolutely, I'd be happy to do that.
20 shares.
Yeah, huge. And so I started doing overnights at KNUE and then eventually moved to middays. And I was doing middays and I loved it. My mom had seen an advertisement somewhere for Mississippi State University over in Starkville, which has a broadcast meteorology program.
Good college town too.
Yeah, it's like College Station except in Mississippi. If you haven't been there before, the whole town is really geared around, and there's a lot of commonality. It's ag, vet school, weather, a lot of those same types of studies happened there at State as you see at A&M. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, is Mississippi State Dak Prescott?
He was there.
Okay,
he played there.
That's my little bit of trivia now. I'm sorry. No, I had the question mark forming on my board.
You did.
Yeah, you could see it.
And I thought, Dak Prescott? Sorry.
Long after I was there, but yeah. So she said, because I wasn't sure where the radio thing was going to go for me, and it's a weird business.
Yes. Oh, it is.
And it was really starting to change too, because we were getting into that whole voice tracking thing, and live jocks that was going. You could see it was kind of going that direction. And so I'm just trying to figure out, what am I going to do? And so she said, well, what about this Mississippi State place? And so went out there and took a look at it. And I'd always had an interest in weather, but the math stuff that you have to deal with in a lot of these places is insane.
Are you good at math?
No, I'm awful at math.
Okay. See, I married my accountant, so that takes care of the math.
I'm even worse at reading, but I'm really bad at math.
No, I've Terry Bradshaw math. 2 + 2 = cat. Sorry, Terry, because it would say, who's the Hall of Famer loser? I get it.
Yeah, we all have our gifts.
Yes.
Yes.
Numbers ain't one of them.
No. So I had steered clear of weather. I had looked at it when I was initially at TJC to go down that degree path, but I was like, that's just not going to work for me. And honestly, when I got to TJC, I wanted to be on the radio. That's what I wanted to do. I wouldn't have even gone to college had it not. Well, I wouldn't have wanted to go to college had it not been for being on the drum line at TJC and getting involved in the band and doing that kind of thing.
Did TJC have a radio station there?
No, they did not.
Oh, okay.
They did not.
Because a lot of them have like Part 15. Well, before internet, they'd have like the Part 15 station that would get you like 1,000 yards, something like that.
Well, we had
them in Minnesota.
Yeah, well, they had one at SFA, which was a lot of fun because I was at TJC. Finished there and went on to Stephen F. And we had a radio station there in Nacogdoches, which was great. So I'm at KNUE. Mom sees this ad for Mississippi State. I'm like, that's interesting. She said it's designed for broadcast meteorologists, so it doesn't seem like it's going to have quite the amount of quite the crazy. You'll be basically walking out of a lot of these weather schools with a physics degree. It seems like so. They're really focusing on the meteorology part of it. And I said, that's very interesting. I went out there, took a look around, and decided, okay, I think this may be a direction to try to go. And so pulled the trigger on it. It was very hard. I was heartbroken to leave KNUE and to leave that piece of it because it was a lot of fun, But I felt like for the longer term, this would be something that it would put me in a different place. And so took the leap out to Starkville and was there for, I guess, did 3 semesters there. I was home working the summer when you mentioned JD passing. I was home that summer. That was in June, I think, was when JD passed away.
Okay.
And I don't think I was picking up some shifts, I think, at KNUE maybe at the time, doing some cover.
That makes sense.
Covering some stuff. And then he passed, and they were like, we really want to do some kind of a tribute. And I was like, well, I'll be happy to do that. And so that's kind of.
Well, I think you were the one that called me, weren't you?
I may have either me or Kenny or who knows, maybe the general manager at the stations at the time. But anyway, so but the Mississippi State thing kind of grew out of an idea that something that my mom had seen, and that's what kind of steered me in that direction. And I really did. I started to feel like, it seemed like the business itself was going in a place that was going to be more hostile for somebody with my talent level.
You're talking about radio, right?
Yeah, radio. I said, I probably need to find something else to do because I don't know that I'm going to be around to do it.
I always relate to the story that in '95, I remember seeing an article, and it was RCS. RCS is the parent company of Selector, which would do music logs and do all of your music.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was called RCS releases paperless studio, and I just went gulp. Oh, and I remember telling Roseanne, I said, watch out. Just watch out. And it was by 97 when I think they were called Golf Star at the time.
Yep.
We referred to them as Death Star because what the hell they were.
We did that too.
Where they had it was like all music directors. The music went centralized, nights, overnights, weekenders, all gone.
Yeah.
But
I remember because I was working, you're talking about working in Longview. I was driving to Longview because when I started at 96X, the studio was there it was on a road going north out of Longview. There's a radio station there now. It's an old house, basically. And I can't remember the name of the road. But anyway, the studio, the house had a significant roof issue. This building did. Had a sizable roof problem. And so.
What could go wrong with that, Doc?
Well, and they had shag carpet in the hallway.
Okay.
And anytime it would rain, my mom reminded me of this as well. Anytime they had a major leak issue there, and the carpet would get wet in the middle of the building right there, just outside the control room. And my mom was telling me this. She reminded me of this like 5-6 years ago. I was sick for weeks. Mold. I think it was mold. I don't know what it was. So I'm not, making a claim or anything, but something was going on there. And I was sick for quite a long time. Yeah. I was going to be at that radio station come hell or high water. Because you know that feeling.
Oh,
you know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the building, we were there, the studios were there in Longview. And they eventually moved them over to Tyler, which was pretty awesome because you go from an hour, commute to 20 minutes.
Absolutely.
10 minutes. But
been there, done that.
Yeah. So that was interesting. But I remember coming over, I think I was at 96 at the time, but I remember coming over to Tyler and I was standing in the control room with Gary Walker at KNUE. And that was back when in the old configuration, you had the KNUE studio
up front,
at the front. And then across the lobby on the other side was the 93, the KTYL studio.
Yep.
And I remember standing in the studio with Gary, looking over, and the lights were. It was middle of the afternoon. The lights were off in the KTYL studio, and all you could see was the glow from that computer. And they had just let all the air staff go at 93 at KTYL, like that week, and they were going voice tracking, and it was heartbreaking. And I've always remembered that sight, that vision in my mind of looking across.
Was that when they switched from Jammin' Oldies?
Or
switched to Jammin' Oldies?
I don't think they'd switched to Jammin' Oldies quite yet.
I had forgotten that experiment.
Had you forgotten about that experiment?
I had forgotten about that experiment.
Jammin' Oldies?
Yeah. So I rarely listened to that station then. Yeah. But I guess it was 2001 or 2.
I got a story about that too.
They went Christmas. Mm-hmm. They went Christmas, and then they flipped to the New Mix 93 one. Yeah. Then when they were stunning. And so we listened to the Christmas station when I was in my journalism classroom in high school. Dating myself here. But we had 93.1 on because they were playing Christmas music while we were editing the yearbook.
It was festive.
It was very festive. And then suddenly it was something else.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember the Eagle did that in Dallas, something akin to that years ago. I was on, I did some fill-in work for Jammin' Oldies when I was at 56. When I got back to Tyler in 2000, in 2001, Jeff Evans was the PD over at 93.1, and he had me cover for him on several occasions, one of which was 9/11.
Ooh.
So I'm on the air at the studio there. I've got filling in for Jeff, and he's had a TV over. I'm standing at the console. The TV's over to my left, and I had it on Fox News, and the cable coverage or the cable signal was awful, so it was really grainy. And I remember looking over and seeing what looked like smoke coming up, and the first plane had already hit the Trade Center. And I remember going on the air and saying it looks like there's been, a plane crash. And you're just there really
reacting.
You're there to give the time and temp and front sell or back sell a song and get off.
Exactly.
But little did we know initially, and you eventually knew something really bad was happening. But initially, I will always remember, and I've got the wire copy. I think it was John Sims. Maybe I had him print me something off. So I still have it saved of that day where, the 9/11, the planes crash and there's a plane here and a plane here. It's creepy to think back on that and to have, have been there that day and just where were you, on those types of
That
days.
was my 18th birthday.
9/11 was?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. I was at school and I actually had, again, recording the radio, had a blank cassette tape in the radio boombox that I had in the journalism room.
Heck yeah.
And hit record. And I have it somewhere. And I listened to it back years ago. And it is one of the creepiest, strangest news broadcasts. Yeah. Because that was what was actually live on ABC radio. And
yes. And you didn't have,
scary.
we didn't have our cell phone. We weren't getting information. You had to get the information from the jock on the air or from the TV that somebody might have had somewhere that they could get something over the air. It is an amazing time to tell kids nowadays what it was like to get information and to give information back then. I remember going into this because I was at 56. Like I said, I was doing weekend weather at 56, but I was helping them out at the radio station. And I remember going into the engineering, and they were trying to figure out how could we patch in a TV so that we could feed, because there were 4 stations there at the time. And you had 93, 96, 101, and 107. They were trying to feed a television feed for news to all 4 stations simultaneously. So I remember me and the GM trying to patch this stuff in. I'll always remember that too. That was such a crazy
day.
And I don't think anybody played music for 3-4 days. You remember that, Chuck? Was it?
I was on the beach at that time because I was in the first iteration of the ranch. Yeah. It was like all new reboots, which is it didn't do well. And so I was off. And I remember being at home and Rosanna telling me about this. And so I walk in our bedroom and I'm watching this. And, this is the first plane.
Yeah.
And you're going, well, it could be this, it could be that. And then as they show the second plane, you just get this feeling of hopelessness, sick.
Yes.
Because that's not what this is.
Yeah.
So I didn't experience that from a news point of view, from a human point of view. It was just, you want to just throw up because you thought, oh my gosh, this is, it's come to our shores.
Yeah.
Everything that we've read about, that's happened, overseas, Britain, France, that other countries have experienced, we are getting it now.
Yeah.
And that was just.
I had just actually got the job at KYKX when that happened, like days before.
Really?
I was a part-timer, but I wasn't at the studio when that happened. I was, however, similar story, I was filling in at KYKX on afternoons the day of the Smith County Courthouse shooting.
Oh, wow. Yes.
And that was difficult.
That was a
because
crazy
I was
day.
in Longview, but of
Yes.
course, East Texas situation, and I don't know that I did a very good job. I think I got roasted on radioinfo.com back in the day however I was responding to it on the air. Probably because I sounded like I was, 19, because I was.
Well, you were 19.
I was 19.
Well, and those are crazy situations where, how do you respond? What do you need to impart? What do you not need to impart to people?
Yeah.
What do folks want to know?
Yeah.
What do they have access to? It's just,
Well, and you do something similar with weather now because you're on Facebook, like doing weather for people and trying to give them information in extreme situations and fill in those gaps.
yeah, which is fun. I mean, I've really enjoyed getting involved with that. It's been a lot of fun, because you get to help people out when they're in kind of a keyed up situation. And I don't think I hate to say it, I don't think I realized how keyed up a lot of people get having been on the television side of things for as long. I think the problem was you're not necessarily connected to people in the moment where you can see their reactions to what you're saying or what they're feeling, what they're seeing. Because when you're on the weather wall or something like that on television, you're not really interacting with anybody except, the floor crew and maybe a person in the weather center, and you got a producer in your IFB maybe saying, hey, we got somebody so-and-so's on if you want to talk to them, or we got a reporter. But you're not really seeing the experience these people are having. So when you're in that situation on Facebook and you can see these comments and they're coming, coming up, it's really
Gratifying, maybe?
well, it's satisfying to feel like you're helping somebody out.
And when I mean gratifying, I don't mean from an ego point of view. I mean from, like you said, you're helping people. You're giving them the most direct information that you can in that circumstance.
Yeah, I enjoy that part of it. Just being able to connect with folks and help them, and because I've always found people don't have any trouble getting keyed up during severe weather. They have no problem doing that. They have a lot of trouble unwinding from that.
Yes.
I always get the biggest kick, especially where we've had the hot temperatures recently, and you'll inevitably hear this from weather folks. And I'm not taking a stab at you on this one, but it'll be, we have a cold front coming in. It'll be like 87.
Yeah.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, you got to play up the positives where you can, though. Chuck,
you're right. But I also get to the, you're sitting there, and you're right. I mean, if we're sitting there and it's December, middle of December, and we say it's 30 degrees and we may have a slight chance of snow flurries, well, you know what's going to happen at Walmart.
Oh my gosh, man.
It's like zombie apocalypse with going for water and food.
It is.
I'll tell you that snow. You say snow around here, really anywhere in the South, man, and you will really fire some folks up. But it's some of it. And there's a lot more of that PTSD kind of thing going on now after February of 21.
Oh, gosh, yes.
There are a lot of folks who really just got smoked during that whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, all kidding aside, the last couple of years with, you had Snowmageddon, but plus you have the last year and a half with the cold snaps and the trees coming down. Our neighborhood got pasted pretty well. We didn't. But still, you're right. You sit there and you go, I'll be walking the dog maybe, on a night where it's 30 degrees. There was one night we were doing it and we're walking, and all of a sudden I hear crunch, 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 crunch.
Yeah.
And I could tell it was maybe, it's dark out, 100 yards maybe to the left. And I just said, okay, boy, let's keep our eyes open here, because you never, we don't want to have where daddy and the kid get killed by a branch. That's just not good.
You don't want to go out that way.
That's not on my dance card for right now.
That's not how you're going out. But that I'll tell you, that 21 storm really changed a lot of people's perspective on winter weather for sure. Mm-hmm. And it put a lot of angst into folks that I didn't realize until we had an ice storm. Was it last February or last January? They all kind of blend together now. It's weird. As you get older, man, the years start stacking up. But anytime that it's always, is it going to be like, it's going to be like February of 21? And we sound like those people now.
Yes.
I remember back when.
But it was a historical storm.
That was a beast. That was
once in 100 years, maybe.
Yeah, that was a.
The rolling blackouts.
Yeah.
I mean, did you have this experience? So you're having blackouts and you're sitting there, the lights come on, you're racing to the microwave to heat some food up to where, when it does go off, you go, honey, how's the macaroni and cheese? Well, it's warm. Well, that's what we're taking for right now. We had that experience. We had about a 30-hour period in Chandler where it was like that. And then when everything came on, you kind of, you're right, PTSD. You held your breath, going, are the lights going to stay on? And then but we had plumbing issues for weeks because we had things that blew, and the plumbing issue was one thing, but it was either getting somebody to fix it or getting supplies to fix it.
Yes, because you were in the middle of that whole COVID thing at the time.
My gosh,
with all of that.
I mean,
that was a bad scene. I
was never so happy to take a bath that didn't involve a bottle of water. It was like 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't. Yeah. So, but you're right. It's. If you're winter in East Texas and you say ice and storm together, I think people still get uptight and I'm one of them too. I'll admit that.
That was a benchmark event for us. That was February of 1899 kind of stuff, because that was really one of the big. I mean, you've had 1983, December of '83 was a huge winter weather event. December of '89 was a huge winter event. 1899 was kind of the benchmark. That was the big one, Galveston Bay, part of that was frozen. Mm-hmm. So you were having to go back. I think the 21 thing that we saw was more akin to that big 1899 deal, which is great to say that we saw it.
Yeah.
And we survived
and we lived through it. Yeah.
And I mean, just to witness the majesty of that. Because I remember driving out. I had, I love my wife. She knows if there's going to be storms or something significant weather-wise, I'm going to want to get in my vehicle and I'm going to want to go look around. Mm-hmm. I've got 4-wheel drive and we're going to go.
Okay.
And so she is good. She's good-natured, and she knows she's going to want to be there too, because she's like, if you're going out, I'm going out. Mm-hmm. So we go driving. I remember standing at the intersection of Old Jacksonville and Rice Road the morning after we had like 7 inches on the ground. Mm-hmm. And standing in the middle of that intersection and just taking pictures up and down Old Jacksonville and just thinking, wow, this is unbelievable.
Was that the morning it was below zero?
No, that was the morning before that.
Okay.
Because we hit the 6 below on Tuesday.
Yes. Oh, gosh.
And my dad was recovering from COVID, or had recovered from COVID. So he'd been in the hospital, and he was out at Meadow Lake in a rehab type setting there. So we were trying to get my mom back and forth from their house to Meadow Lake down Old Jacksonville, and the lights were out completely that night of that we hit that 6 below, and the backup power supply system at Meadow Lake was not able to keep the heat on.
Oh no!
Oh dear!
So, which just completely blew my mind. So. I get online, and my friend Matt Schaefer reached out to some people. Brian Hughes reached out to some folks. I remember Matt and I and a couple of other guys out there bringing generators out there to Meadow Lake and space heaters to get them in there. And I'll never forget that. I remember driving home, and it was pitch black from that. We're right north of Toll 49, all the way back to the Loop, I guess. No traffic lights, just pitch black. And I remember thinking, the sun was going down, and I'm like, it is going to be a cold night.
Yeah, yeah.
The coldest we've seen in many, many, many years. But, just again, what an incredible thing to see,
Yeah, and incredible to see communities come together to take care of people who can't take care of themselves, right? Yeah. Like it reminds me of the conversation we had with Kenny, mobilizing and saying who can help.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't expect anything less from, like I said, from Matt and Brian and those guys. Those are good.
Well, or
good
from
cats.
You, right? Wow. Like you stepped up. You didn't have to step up. You could have said, I'm going to take care of my parent.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, I can't. Yeah, just being there though and seeing people who were, because I mean, those folks in there they're all in their 70s plus. You've got nurses in there who haven't gone home in a couple of days.
Right.
Just it was an incredible thing to see.
I bet.
And the rolling blackout thing, like you said, I remember being live on on the different platforms that night when I think it was Sunday night when the stuff was really starting to hit the fan. Mm-hmm. And I remember getting a text message from the ERCOT, my ERCOT app, saying we will begin rolling blackouts, shortly. And I'm thinking, man, this is not going to be good.
No.
And we didn't have a generator at the time. Fortunately, I think our power was out for maybe 5 minutes in that entire event.
Wow.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
We don't live far from 56 and, over in that area. And I kind of have to wonder if there are some priority areas that hold a little bit longer on the grid, maybe. I don't know, because of the proximity, not to our house, but the proximity to that major intersection there at 69 in the loop.
We're near the hospitals, and we managed to keep power pretty much the whole time,
that
too.
Kind of
and
I wonder the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's understandably so. But I remember talking to some firefighters who were telling me they were trying to, they were having to go, and I think this is correct. I got it from some fire folks. They were trying to prioritize water into the hospitals because of the dialysis process that was going on during that time, because they couldn't, because we had a boil water notice in place. You remember that?
Yep.
Do you remember that, Chuck?
Probably.
Yeah. We couldn't drink the water.
Right. This was the first time I remember thinking how important it was to have, like, they tell you in disaster preparedness to have tap water saved, like a couple of gallons, because you just never know.
A lot of times you'll hear people say that.
Yes. And I mean, I've known this because I've been in radio and done a ton of public service announcements in my 20 years. But I maybe had like one on hand. And then I realized, like even to flush the toilet, like you don't realize how often you use water and take it for granted until you don't have it.
Then you learn how much, for instance, how much does it take to flush a toilet? Seriously.
How much snow does it take to flush a toilet? That's what a lot of folks were doing.
We melted snow.
Yes.
That's what a lot of people were doing when they were flushing with snow.
We had power, so we were melting snow on our stovetop to have water in our home.
Yes, and it's clean water. It's good water.
It was clean water.
Yeah,
and it was.
You were like a Coors commercial. You just didn't know it.
It was an interesting week. It was an interesting week. Yeah.
When everything settled down, it made you appreciate things, and it made you go, well, you know what? I guess my priorities are okay.
Yeah. That storm that came through back in June of this year.
Oh gosh, that was devastating.
After the February deal, we got a generator that fall. Even though we weren't out of power, I'm like, man, this could really go south on us really fast. And we have a lot of trees in our subdivision area, and I want to have power because, frankly, I feel like I need that. have to have that if I'm going to be on the air during something. If it's hitting the fan, I need to be to be online.
Makes sense.
So we get the generator, and we were on generator for 2 solid days after that storm in June. And you really appreciate when that power comes back on, even though we had the backup power to handle stuff, and we'd have people come over and stay and whatnot. But you so appreciate it, man. When they hit that switch, I was standing in the yard, and the contractors were there from Florida putting the power back on. And you so appreciate, like you said, people coming in, pitching in. And those guys were getting paid, obviously. But it was so cool to see the cavalry coming in.
It was.
To save the day, during events like that.
The linemen.
Yeah, love those folks.
Yeah, it was really special. That storm was shocking. You say you're over here by 56. I'm over closer to the hospitals, just inside the loop, and Biloxi, and our neighborhood got hit really hard too. It looked like a war zone.
Yeah, it did.
Amherst and Fry, and I mean, we also like to get in the Tahoe and ride around whenever weather events come in, which probably not the smartest thing to do, but we do it.
I know, yeah.
We have rental properties, and so we were out checking on our properties, and checking on our folks. And it was hard to get to some of them because there were power lines down, there were trees down. I mean, it was just shocking. Yeah,
and it was that way. I drove out. I did a little looking around to try to help the weather service out with some stuff out on the west side of town, out by the airport. And war zone. It was a war zone over there. It was that way in our neighborhood. And it was just a good north-south swath across Smith County that just really got blown up. And over by Green Acres. Was it a tornado? No, it was downburst wind, looks like. Yeah. It's interesting because everybody thinks they're an expert when stuff like that happens. And you hear people all over social media saying it's a tornado. I saw a funnel cloud. If a trash can gets flipped, man, it was a tornado. But it really wasn't a tornado. But in most people's minds, it felt like a hurricane. When I was watching it did because the wind move. It didn't stop. It was consistent. And that was the thing. It's one thing to have a 70-mile-an-hour burst. But you have 50 to 70 mile an hour winds for multiple minutes. You're going to do a lot of damage.
So you are at KETK, right? Doing weather?
I
at
was.
56?
I was.
You were, but were you not out of the market for a while? Did you West Texas? Do I want to say West Texas?
Yeah, I went to Abilene. Let's see, that would have been 2002. Yeah, 2002 to 2004. I didn't even know where Abilene was hardly on a map. I mean, which is. So I talked to the news director, and he said, just get on I-20 and take a left and don't stop.
Pretty much.
And you'll eventually get here.
Yeah.
And I loved West Texas. It was awesome.
When I moved here in '84, and this is a Yankees perspective on Texas, I got here. And the fact that there were trees around it just bowled me over. And I said, "What about the tumbleweeds?" And everybody, without it, would be one Mississippi. They say, "Oh, that's West Texas."
That's West Texas.
Yeah, that's West Texas.
Go to Sweetwater and you'll see some tumbleweeds out
Tumbleweeds.
there.
So you were there a couple of years. Did you come back to East Texas, or did you go to other places?
No, I went to Abilene, 2 years there, and then I guess it was probably have been Thanksgiving of 2003, got a call from some folks saying that they were going to be starting up a CBS affiliate here in town, because we didn't have a CBS affiliate at that point. We used to have a CBS affiliate back in the 90s.
Okay.
But when the NFL parted ways with CBS and got their deal going with Fox, what was the CBS affiliate, KLMG, flipped from CBS to Fox. So that's why we now have Fox 51, because prior to that, they were the CBS.
I didn't know that.
That either.
Or over in Longview.
Okay.
And so the CBS affiliation thing was coming along. Basically, 56, the parent company of 56, of KTK, they had Channel 19 down in Nacogdoches, which was, I think it was licensed to Nacogdoches, but through whatever FCC rules and regs have to happen, they were able to relocate that transmitter up to from there Ponte, which is down between Jacksonville and Nacogdoches. And so they moved the 19 stick down there, and we started news here in September 12th, I think, was the first newscast of 2004. 2004. So I came on as the chief here, to do weather. So we were doing 6 and 10 at the time. Then we added a 5, and so we're doing 5, 6, and 10 here from 04 through 07.
Was Brian Houston there at the time?
Yeah, Brian eventually got there. Chuck McDonald was there.
I remember Chuck McDonald. I liked him a lot.
God, man, such a good dude. Both of those guys, Brian and Chuck, both.
And Chuck, I mean,
what a voice.
Chuck was in Minneapolis TV, I believe. I think he was.
He's a stud. He was a stud.
In the Midwest. And Brian, we all love Brian.
I have a random question, and if you don't want to talk about this, you can send it to the chopping block. Was there a random reality TV situation early on?
There was.
An anchor woman situation. Do you remember this?
That died in like 2 episodes. Doc, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. Didn't it get a lot of flack?
They brought in, I think it was the original executive producer for American Idol, I think.
Okay.
It was either American Idol or Survivor. I'm trying to think of what all his resume was like.
Survivor weather.
Yeah.
That might have worked.
Oh, this has to do with ice storms? Okay.
Could have worked. So they were pitching this thing. They were looking to do a reality show at a television station with this. I'm trying to think of. I can't even remember the girl's name. Yeah, I think she was involved with. She was involved with something.
WWE or something.
WWE. Maybe it was WWE.
Why do I want to say Trish Stratus or somebody like that? I don't know why.
I don't remember her name.
It just kind of popped.
But she was involved. They wanted to bring her in and try to make her an anchor, a news anchor. And so.
Because anybody can look into the camera and read the script, right?
That's what they say.
The whole concept is, yeah.
But,
So what was your response? Did you like.
I didn't think it was going to happen. I thought, man, we're not going to come to Tyler, Texas for this.
Yeah.
Come on, they're going to
Yeah.
go somewhere else. Well, I remember having these station meetings, and so they're coming in and they're saying, well, they've pared it down to 20 stations, and we're still in the running. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that's good.
Because nobody wants to do
6 months
this.
later, well, they pared it down to 10 stations, and we're still in the running. And they say, well, looks like they're going to do the show here. And I'm thinking, wow, what is this going to look like?
Yeah.
It was greeted with a little bit of scorn. Wouldn't you not agree?
I would, yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. They were in there for several weeks shooting it, and that's not really a game that I really want to be, necessarily involved with.
Right.
It was interesting to watch it on the periphery.
I bet.
And I had friends who were involved in that very directly, and it's unnerving. To see that, because there's just a lot of creative license that you are granting someone, in your hometown,
Yeah.
to do whatever they want to do.
Potentially damaging relationships
Yes.
that have been decades in the making.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
I wondered if that was maybe a piece of the issue, because you don't think about that in a reality series when you're watching it, right? You're just watching the drama unfold, but the things that are actually happening to the real relationships behind the scenes, I could
the
imagine
real
would
stuff,
be
not the crap that's on the
Right.
the product that you're seeing on the air, but the
Right.
real stuff that happens. After all this,
I just remember it went away really quietly. Like it was a thing, and there were like reports about it, and like she was going to be at Cattle Barons or something, or I don't even remember what the thing was.
And
then quietly she just suddenly was gone.
Yeah, and I think the show, I don't think it didn't do what the Fox people. I'm assuming it did do what they wanted it to do, because it was gone in a couple
Canceled
of
quickly.
Well, didn't she find out that it's not like you just read stuff from a teleprompter? You have to have skills.
Yeah, I don't know what she discovered in that whole process. She and I really didn't have many conversations. I was kind of on the side of that.
You were smart enough to stay away.
I was on the
But wasn't your idea, Doc, kind of like, hey, no, I'm doing my job.
Yeah,
I have
was
those
just gonna-
situations at work.
Yeah, that was not something that I was really involved with.
On a happier
per se.
note, you had Stormy the Weather Dog.
I did have Stormy. Yeah,
Now
Stormy,
that's a star.
that was an interesting project.
Yeah.
So the idea for that came from I think it was KPRC in Houston. They had a stray dog that showed up at the station, and the weather guy was a big animal guy, and so he started bringing the dog into the studio, and just having him showing him off, and people you don't realize how attached people are to their animals. I didn't realize that. I had no idea that people got as attached as they do to their animals until
You're talking to
that.
two big animal lovers here.
Yeah. So, people went really, really hot on that. And so, go down, take a look at the dog, kind of look at how are they utilizing the dog, and we were able to raise some good money for Goodwill Industries through that project. And I know the folks around the station, they were, the Stormy would stay upstairs, because the CBS building was a movie theater years ago, Cinema 4 back when I was a kid, so you had the projector room upstairs, which is its own maze. So the dog would sleep up there at night during the week, and then on the weekends he would go home with different people from the station, and they would just let him hang out at their house.
That's cool.
Yeah, but working with an animal is not as easy as it might look.
I believe it.
Because you need the dog to do what you need him to do on command, and so Judy Gregg from PetSmart, bless her heart, she came over. We worked a lot with just trying to get this guy to push this button. I just need you to push the button. That's it. Here's a cheese weenie. Push the button, and we're going to give you the cheese weenie. And it's all good. Everybody's cool. But sometimes getting him to do what you need him to do while the camera's rolling, while we still have some tape left in the player, to record this. So, Stormy was, I think he ended up, Carol, our HR lady, I think she adopted him. And after I left in '07 to start real estate, I think she adopted him, and he lived the rest of his time, I think, with her over in Henderson, I believe.
So I don't want to go old, W.C. Fields on you, but did somebody say to you, after Stormy, "Hey, Doc, how'd you like if my 6-year-old niece came on and did the weather with you?" Did you start screaming? No. I don't want her to punch the button.
Kids and animals.
Yeah.
That was said, and that was said for a reason, because, kids and animals, man, they will totally captivate an audience, And that's a good thing.
Or ignore you.
Yeah. Well, what you're trying to do is, when you're trying to start something like the station, I mean, like I said, there was no CBS there before 2004. So you're trying to attract eyeballs. You're trying to get attention. You're trying to bring people awareness that you're there.
Change their habits, and that's hard to do.
That's hard to do.
And on your own credit, too, all kidding aside, right?
Yeah. You want to make
you don't want a weather dog. You don't want a funky niece. It's, here's Doc's weather. You don't want that.
You want to be credible and compelling. And you're, like you said, Mandee, you're trying to change habits, and that's hard. And the only way to really do that is, it takes time to do that kind of thing. And it takes good product too. To do that.
You can even have good product. And like you were saying, people don't change overnight. It takes a long time.
No, they don't. They don't. And that's just the nature of humans.
And programmers aren't patient either. I mean, it's hard to sit there whenever you're changing over a product and say, well, this is going to take a couple of years. What? It's just not, it just doesn't happen where, yes, we've changed something, people will go for it right now. It just doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't. And, unless it's something so extraordinary that, and that's just, that's
rare.
an unlikely scenario.
Well, it's like when I was at the ranch, the first iteration didn't take. The second time it took because Tom Perriman was there and was able to get more people's butts in the seats. And then from there, we were able to grow the product more to make the ranch, to have, as I told Tom, I said, okay, you do what you do, but we have to do this to get as many people in the seats, as many ages in the seats, and keep growing the product that way too.
Well, and I think the music for the what's the ranch has done. I remember doing the Gold Rush show on KNUE on Saturday and Sunday.
That was
mornings.
my baby back in the day.
That was amazing.
You know how that started? That started when Amy and Austin and I were. This was maybe in '93, maybe. We were talking about putting on, we were saying, okay, we play, top 40 country, but we know that our listeners like George Jones. They like Loretta.
Absolutely.
They like Haggard. Well, what do? They like Hank Jr. What do we do? And so I put together a small file of maybe 45 songs. And during the course of any given day from 8 in the morning except of the drive time hours, 6 to 8 and 4 to 6. They would play about every 4 hours. It would just spike in there and that's it. And then during request hours, if they requested it, that's how the Gold Rush got started that way.
That's a great story. I loved doing that show.
It's fun.
Loved it.
It's fun. I always called the ranch alternative music for older folks because it didn't. If you say classic country, there's a way of a lot of people pigeonhole it. There's a lot of wiggle room if you let it, but also if you also say, well, we're only going to wiggle so far, but you've got to, it's still the format, at least for us, that, we played Haggard. Yeah, we played Clint Black, but we also played Junior Brown, David Allan Coe, stuff like that. I didn't mean to hijack things either.
That's
but
cool.
You say the ranch and I'll start, talking about,
I find myself there a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
It's good music.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for whatever that's worth.
No. And I every once in a while going to work, I have a 7-minute commute from my house. So if it's after 9 o'clock, I'll punch it up. And I was sitting there one morning, heard Lone Star and No News goes into Sammy Kershaw, Queen of My Double Wide Trailer. And I just had this big smile because, it's not bro country. It's not something to where we're filling in the blanks with this, and this. And, it's stuff that's creative. And I like that a lot.
Yeah. Well, there's such a huge catalog of music.
So it's 2007. You're doing TV weather. You're at CBS 19. Are you at a point at CBS 19 where you go, well, I don't know if I want to be with the expansion, essentially an expansion TV station any longer, and the growing pains that go with it? And did you get interested in real estate? Did you have a mentor for that?
Well, with real estate, I was asked to play in a celebrity golf tournament over at Cascades. That would have been probably 2005 or 2006. And one of the main sponsors of it was a real estate company here in town. And my granddad, unbeknownst to me, had his real estate license decades ago. So I go to this, and this was a really hot time in real estate. And so
yes, it was.
I met a lady there who owned a real estate company, and I said, she had a shirt on or something, and I said, that sounds like a very interesting job. And she said, it's amazing. I said, I've always kind of want to bounce that around in my head. And she said, well, we should go to lunch. And so we went to lunch, and the discussions just kind of went from there. And, kind of like with the radio thing, with the television, I didn't want to leave Tyler. It was hard to leave Abilene. I loved West Texas, and had my family not been here, I don't know that I tell people a lot of times they probably would have put me in a box out there because I wouldn't have wanted to. I didn't want to leave. But when I got back here and got plugged in, and I didn't want to go. And television, anything, is you've got non-competes. You've got a lot of restrictions that if it don't work out here, it's not like working at Whataburger and you go across the street to McDonald's.
Right.
You're going to have to leave town probably or sit out for at least a year. Mm-hmm. And I don't want that. So I'm thinking, well, what can I do to give me some of that space? And real estate was, because you have a name. You consider yourself a pretty, a hard worker, and what can you do to kind of capitalize on that? Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where the real estate thing. That's kind of how I started kind of easing in that direction. Started working on my license, kind of below the radar. And
is that a weather pun?
That is a weather pun.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you. I thought about that, and I thought no pun intended, but yeah, I'll go ahead and say that.
Okay.
So I started working on kind of low profile on my real estate license. You take some classes. Aaron, your husband, can talk about all that.
He did it at TJC.
Did he? Yeah, they have a TJC class, but that's a little more exposed than I wanted to be at the time.
Understand? Yeah.
So I did
Online?
my stuff online. Yes, and so I didn't necessarily want that being broadcast out there. There's another pun for you.
Yep.
All right, how about that?
Hey, it's the oldest game in the book. Don't let anybody know, what you're doing.
And I tell you, I'm amazed at how some people do not take that advice, and they will just talk. They'll leave jobs and broadcast their business. I never have understood that, but I'm amazed to see that.
I'm from the Fox Mulder School. Trust no one, man.
That's where I'm from as well.
I had a good mentor who told me that I might leave a place but need a job there later, so I should always
not burn bridges.
Always take care of that bridge.
Always take care of that bridge.
When I left KNUE in '97, I remember dropping a tape, and I dropped a tape and resume over to Ken Curtis and the guys at Kicks, thinking, well, we're bitter enemies. They're not going to want to talk to me. I was over there, I forget where, at a Whataburger or something, with their main consultant and Ken, talking about moving over there like within 48 hours. And whoever your enemy is today, they're going to be your friend tomorrow. So I always say, never speak ill of anybody, ever.
No.
Keep your plans close to your
vest. Yeah.
Exactly.
And so, and that's the thing with, that'll kind of circle back here in a second with the weather. But so I got real estate license. I went to a class. I went to a prep class. The night that they premiered that Anchorwoman show that you were asking about, I was actually driving back from Dallas from this prep class to get ready to take my test. So I never saw the Anchorwoman show.
Okay. I didn't either.
Yeah.
That might have been the problem.
Apparently, neither did a lot of other people.
I don't think many people saw
But
it.
anyway,
Yeah.
that's another story. But I was coming back from this prep course to get ready to take my test, because you have to take a national test and a state test to get your license. You can do the classwork, but then you got to go through this process.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started working real estate. I was completely out of the television thing there, and was able to survive real estate. 2008, you had the huge real estate crash. Alyssa and I got married in December of 2007. So she was gainfully employed, thank the Lord. And
that was a tough year.
I was able. It was a harsh year in real estate, but I didn't know any different because I didn't have any.
Not a bad time to start when it's hard.
No, not a bad time to start when it was that way.
Learn, make mistakes, and then you really appreciate it when it's good.
Yeah. So, better that than, rolling through 2021 and 22 like a lot of agents have done, and thinking that's
Oh, you put
normal.
a sign up and it sells in 2 days for for 100,000 more than you listed it for?
It's amazing.
What?
Yeah. How does that happen?
I don't know.
Yeah. So thankfully I went through the 08 crash and was able to kind of move along from there.
Perspective.
Does that help some? Does that kind of help some of the question there?
Exactly.
Yeah. But it was an interesting time. And then when I left CBS in 2007, I maintained contact. Had been approached by a couple of people for some other things related to television, and then I got a call from my friend Dan Delgado, and he said, "Hey man, would you have any interest in coming back and doing anything at all?" And Dan and I had talked it a couple of times, after I'd left, and I said, "Man, I can't do 8 hours a day, but I would love to come work with John and you guys if we could make something happen." So I came in and started just giving John a little bit of an extra break, and I would do the 5, and then he could do the 6 and 10, and so that had me kind of I was juggling both there for a while, but it was fun because I love John Adams. Just he's a prince of a guy, just an absolute awesome.
I've never met him in person.
Oh, God, John Adams is salt of the earth if there ever was salt.
I have heard that he is a funny man.
Crazy dry humor.
Really?
Crazy.
He's at 56 now, isn't he?
He does.
Yeah.
He does weekends there and helps him out. Such a good dude. Henderson High School boy, baseball player.
Okay.
Great guy.
Well, it's interesting because it's obvious at times that he anchors, and when I say anchors, I mean this in a veteran presence way with their young weather people in storm situations, because and they do a terrific job, but they'll be on the air and they'll ask John, "Can you get this? Can you read me this?" And it reminds me of back in the day, Bob Peters on KNUE. I would be doing nights on KNUE and calling Dr. Bob and giving him radar information, and then he would come on and just spit it back on the air. And I was stunned because those that don't know, Dr. Bob Peters, a longtime weather person in the market for maybe 50 years, Doc?
Yeah, 50 years. That's what got me interested in weather was Dr. Bob.
And Dr. Bob's legally blind.
Yes.
He's blind.
Great guy. Great guy.
He's a terrific that, and I always remember when it would be political nights.
Yes.
Him, Mike Edwards, Bill Markham would be doing, political talk, and just really, it's where they would make the station shine so much.
Yes. Yeah. He was what brought a lot of people to the radio station. Dr. Bob, and Mike. Those were the faces of the radio station.
Oh, absolutely.
There, John Adams gave me my very first tour of a TV station. This would have been 1983, maybe. He was at Channel 7 over on the East Loop when their studios were there in that old aircraft. That used to be an airport there. Did you know that, Amy?
No.
Yeah, there was an airport there.
On the East Loop?
On the East Loop, where the 7 studios were. If you look at the old building, it looks like a hangar. It was an old hangar. Because there were, I think.
What I know of the East Loop is the
old KDOC building over there.
Well, is that where the BB building?
Yeah.
That's covered in
the old
nature
BB.
now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That was a KDOC. That was KNUE. I think their studio was there back way back.
Okay.
I had a guy tell me, who will remain nameless, but KNUE was in there with 1490 with KDOC, and this was been back, I guess it was the 70s, the 80s, and there was some problem with the shielding, because they had that transmitter, was the 100,000 watt transmitter, I think was on that tower behind him. And he said,
"Oh gosh,
you would walk into the back of the building, and the hair on your back of your neck would stand up because there was so much radiation loss going on."
Wow.
And that's not a funny laugh either, because oh gosh,
Yeah,
really,
that's a little scary.
Yeah, kind of spooky. But John gave me my first. I have a picture of me and John. I was doing a science project for weather, and so he was nice enough to give me let me take a picture with him, and I always cherish that, because then I get to work with the guy.
Yeah, that's special.
Later on. Mm-hmm. So, yeah,
I think it's always awesome. It's to me, as a radio person, meeting TV people. I mean, and really the first time I had a chance to do it was when I was at 99.3 Talk FM in 2010, doing sports talk with Reed Kerr, and then Brian Houston.
Yeah.
It was really great because for me, because it was something I'd never done talk. And I remember Dave Moreland said to me, "You want to produce?" And I go, "What do we do?" Because we both really, Dave and I are not news guys. Mm-hmm. So I started doing what I would usually do was, it needs a music library. And that's what I would do. And that's what I did.
Start with what you know.
But yeah.
Don't talk dry. Always have a bed under you.
That's right. That's right. And so, but with both Reed and Brian, they let me fully participate in the show. And so it was a great learning experience for me, a wonderful learning experience. And it also taught me that one thing leads to another, because I did a lot of production pieces for Brian and Reed. So when 99.3 shifted to Hispanic Top 40, and of course, which means our jobs were gone, I reached out to Paul Berry at KTBB, and I said, "Look, I realize you don't have any openings, but can I send you my tape and resume and keep it on file?" And he said, "Sure." And then I think I had a call a week later, just enough to where I had a nice vacation, and said, "Hey, come on in and talk to us." So from there. So, but that was kind of the last few years have been this constant, for me, a constant lesson of you learn something new every day. I do in the business, and I've been doing 47 years now. So
and to get the fact that you get to Brian is such a good guy to work with, and Reed,
he's
such
excellent.
a good guy, but you're such a natural. You could work any format, Chuck.
Well, and
seriously,
and thank you. But with Reed, we would do. It was so funny because with both Brian and Reed, we would do White House football, and I would just laugh because here I've kind of groused in a playful manner, which would be, I've been in radio 33 years and I'm doing Friday night football, but
I'd do it tomorrow if somebody said, "Hey, we need you to board up the Friday night game. Will you come in?"
You too.
I love it.
But the whole attack was, let's make this the best broadcast we can.
Absolutely right.
And so, I would sit there and do X's and O's with Brian and Reed and say, okay, what do you guys need at halftime? Hot dog and potty break. So it'd be like, okay, we'll do news. I'll do some sports. We'll play commercials. We'll do good weather. You'll have 13 minutes to do something.
Wow.
So be back at about 12 so I don't get too nervous.
I feel like it's one of those things, like putting Friday night high school football on the air is one of those things that's still the essence of what radio is meant to be, which is like local and community driven.
Yeah.
And
it's a sacred thing there.
It is.
I know.
And there's so little of that now with, the way that, corporations owning everything.
Streaming and the corporate thing, I think, has muddied the water.
Oh, Doc, I'm sure you've seen the absolute bloodbath going on recently. Alpha Media just gutted their Midwest operations, and they, visited Tyler recently in iHeartMedia. I was sitting there this morning, and there was something on iHeart, and it was like you would go to state to state to state, city by city by city, where they were breaking it down, where these remarkable men and women that have been serving their stations, 20, 30 years. There was one that I saw this morning where the gentleman had been there like 39 years. And I was just like, gee.
And I'm sorry. So they're letting these folks go.
Yeah.
Yes. And on top of it, you don't hear a bitter word. They'll be posting something on social media saying, I've had the pleasure of serving you for over 3 decades. Thank you so much.
How gracious.
And I'm going, yes. Of course they know, don't burn those bridges because, hey, they may, maybe they're in a market where, they can go, to someplace maybe there's a family-owned station. Paul Gleiser, KTBB, family-owned operation. It's a real unicorn in this market. It's a real unicorn.
It is. When I was at KDOC, Paul bought KDOC or acquired KDOC when I was there, and they had gone through some kind of out of a bankruptcy. There was something had happened. Anyway,
was this 1330?
This is 1330, and I'd been paid in like 5 months, 6 months.
What?
Yeah, it was some crazy.
Man, you were really doing it for the art.
And I loved it. It
or
was
coffee.
It was absolute love in the deepest form.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm talking
I
about,
do.
Mandee. I can see that in your eyes.
Well,
So,
I mean, I'm doing a podcast.
yeah. But
You guys, and it's not paying the bills.
well, but I will always
familiar.
remember. I met Paul, and he paid me every cent of back pay. That I had, and I was fortunate. I was living at home. I was doing it because I loved it. Obviously, like you said, but to have that local connection there. Somebody who wants it to be done well. Who doesn't want to cut corners. That's the thing that makes me sad about this automation is there's no pipeline for new talent to come into the business, because when you're going to come into the business, you're going to be working overnights. You're going to be working Sunday midnight to 6 a.m. That's where you're going to start. But there's no avenue for that. I guess in the traditional broadcast realm, you can do stuff. You can do things in other areas nowadays. But that's kind of one of the things that makes me sad. And then I hear these stories, like you said, about Alpha, or these coming in and cutting long time talent. Legendary folks. If you're on the air for 40 years, 30 years, that's
About people's habits.
Yes.
People have been probably waking up with that person
absolutely.
for 20 of those years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that makes me sad to hear that.
And, the whole thing about having a station to start, one of the stations with Alpha Media back in my hometown in Minnesota, there's a kind of a Tyler Longview thing, Austin, Minnesota, and Albert Lee, Minnesota, about 25 miles apart, kind of the Tyler Longview thing. Both have meat packing establishments. The the Hormel Corporation in one, and I forget what's at the other one, but yeah, I remember a couple of months ago reading the ops man in Austin saying, the 3 of us here and 3 of us in Albert Lee, 6 people are gone as of today, and it's just haunting because. The people that I see that they get thrown out, especially, some of them, I remember reading, and this is one a couple of years ago, but it stuck with me. It was in Omaha. The gentleman did mornings and programmed one station, and on the adult contemporary station did afternoons and programmed. And I thought, so you're not getting your money where? Parent corporation? Yeah. But I get it too that, they're going to centralize everything. And as somebody once explained, you don't own, 300-400 radio stations and pay for 5 people on each or a couple part-timers on each. It's impossible. You'll go broke or, file for bankruptcy, which iHeart's already done.
Well, and the deregulation thing, when you've got all the ownership concentrated in just a couple of hands, that's tough. That's just you can see how that would lead to.
You think you can ever put that back in that box?
I don't think you can. I don't know how you can. I mean, at this point, you've degenerated. Everything is degenerated down to the point where you've almost pushed people away.
Yeah.
You've pushed people to other avenues.
Well, and I think the other thing too is, and this isn't speaking ill of just a regular listener. I think that maybe a lot of regular listeners maybe don't understand the process.
No, they don't.
They understand one thing. If they're listening to KNUE, they're getting this. If they're listening to, their favorite country station, and that's all, that's what they care about. And I understand. I used to have a saying at the ranch. I go, okay, in the steak dinner of life of this broadcast station, we're the baked potato. It's
you
not
mean the personality's the baked potato.
Yeah. It's not that we're speaking ill of us, but they're here to hear classic country. Our job is to play that, but what we also have to do is get stationality stuff, public service stuff, some of our stuff on, and hopefully that's what makes it the real station. Now, that doesn't mean that listeners aren't feeling. Of course they aren't. It's just that, unfortunately, that's business.
Yeah. The baked potato thing that's an interesting analogy.
Well,
honestly.
it's the
imaging, and
one of my favorite morning people ever is a man named Don Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And when Don was doing mornings at KKUS for me, what I loved about Don is he would get the music on. Mm-hmm. He would get all the stationality stuff in, any public affairs stuff. Mm-hmm. And he would also be Don, which was interesting and humorous and quirky and funny. And he would do that. I mean, occasionally I'd hear something like, it'd be like half hour before Tom Perriman. I'd hear like some crazy cut from like a Burl Ives album. And I'd kind of stare at my radio and I'd go, Don. But on the other hand, I'm always a big believer in chemistry, and, you complain about the right things or complain about it if it trends out. And, Don was doing mornings. Don was doing production. So he's in the building till 2 or 3, producing Tom. And it's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of juggling.
Those 2 hours of producing Tom is a full-time job.
Yeah.
And from what I hear.
What I did not want to do.
I mean, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I miss the man, but it was a lot.
It's a lot to
juggle. Literally juggling CDs as he's sliding them across the counter to you. You could hear the CD live on the air.
Yes, he would slide it across.
Put it in there, boy.
Yeah, hey, boy. I was 48 at the time, and I go, okay, I'll be boy. I'm great. I can do that.
Yeah.
He's such a personality, though. Tom was such a personality, man. Just an absolute personality.
Did you ever if you were ever at a restaurant or anything, when Tom would walk in, he had the ranch bumper sticker on his hat. He'd go, wading in there. Hi, it's Tom. I'm at the ranch. Yep. And, I would just think, the man's probably never had to buy lunch ever.
No.
Because he would wade in there and do it. But Tom and I, when I first started programming, oh, God, we had fights on music like you would.
Really?
Oh, my God. Mm-hmm. He felt that everything should be 50s, 60s, 70s. And I said, Tom, I'm saying this. Our job is to get the most butts in the seats. And what you want to do is talking about a generation that's dying. And I said, I don't want to be rude about it, but that's exactly what it is. And I said, plus what we don't want to do is if we do 50s, 60s, 70s, it makes your show less special. I said, if you do what you do and you let us do what we do, it's going to sit there and bring new people into us and also to you, and it grows the station. Mm-hmm. And so it did. And I mean, I'm not saying that what I did was all that, but what I'm saying is the station grew, and I always felt it was a 4.5 to a 5 share easily in this market. But about every third ratings period, we would have the 18 to 34-year-old males. I don't know why, but the diaries would line up and we'd get about a 6 share.
Well, and just the diary thing in itself, man. The whole ratings thing.
Have you ever read a diary? They're terrifying.
I have seen
It's terrifying.
One. Yeah, I think I've seen. I don't know if it was an Arbitron or a Nielsen diary. I can't remember. It's been a long time ago. But the fact that we're doing diaries, man, come on. I mean,
the technology's not there.
Yeah,
I know. I've been saying that since 2002.
Who are they kidding?
I don't understand.
I don't have any trust in any of that stuff. Honestly,
I think I'm pretty sure. I think it's top 50 up. It's
metered.
All automatic.
They're metered in the big markets, Dallas, those kinds of things.
Are you? When I say when you're still doing any TV, my lizard part of the brain says, yeah, but he's on the internet. But are you doing any sort of any TV like with 19?
Any terrestrial television?
Thank you.
No terrestrial stuff. Just strictly. When I stream, I'll stream it to Facebook, and then we also will push it to Twitter, and we'll push it to YouTube, simultaneous. So you get a lot of coverage there on that.
I know I asked you this once a couple of years ago, just in conversation, because when I've seen your weather feed, I'm struck on how, don't take this wrong, and how incredibly professional it looks like in terms of what I see on terrestrial TV. But how do you do that? Or do you just get software that you just use? And
for the live stream stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. I use it's a Mac-based system. Ecamm Live is the program that I use for it. And I stumbled onto it. I guess I left CBS in 18. I think I found that Ecamm set up in maybe winter of 18, spring of 19, and just kind of started playing around with it because I really wasn't aware of anything else at the time that would allow you to do that. Because, 15 years ago, if you wanted to be online or you wanted to be live, you had to pretty much have a studio, and now, I use my laptop and my mouse, and I've got a decent microphone, and you just kind of go to town with it.
I think Chuck would like for this to be a video podcast. I heard him taking notes.
I was.
You can record, and you can record on that if you want to.
I didn't want you to hear it, but my pen wasn't working.
Would you like my pencil? I have a pencil.
I love a pencil. Pens
Oh
too.
my gosh!
Oh, thank you.
So-
My journalism teacher in college. You know what she taught me, Doc?
What's that?
A pencil will write on a wet piece of paper when a pen will not.
Yes.
It will bleed. So a good journalist always has a pencil.
Thank you, Doc.
Yeah, I write with pencil.
Do
That's
you?
yeah.
Yeah.
I would prefer.
I like both.
I wish I had. I wish I could get some pencils like these pins. There's a little gel thing on the end of that too. By the way, you pull that off, and then it'll write.
I like a gel pen.
Yeah,
They're my
so-
favorite. These are great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
You're very
Doc.
welcome. Yeah, absolutely. What were we talking about?
Oh, it was a
Ecamm
technology
Live.
part.
Oh, we can't. Yeah, so we use that.
Sorry, pen to
squirrel.
to computer.
That's fine.
Technology in a
Yes.
nutshell.
Yeah,
We're pretty relaxed here on the podcast.
but it's a great system. It's worked really good for me.
It looks fantastic.
Well, I appreciate that. It's fun. It's a neat way to be able to kind of scratch that itch. I think because love weather, love being able to help folks out during those times. And when I'm not live, doing a forecast, it's fun to do. I get up and do a forecast, 7-day forecast during the week, and
I read those. Thank you.
I appreciate
enjoy
that.
them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I just trying to fill in that gap, I guess.
I mean, I could go other places for it, but yours pops up in my feed now because I've interacted with it.
Well, thanks.
Which is great. So
I hope it's
enjoy
helpful. And
It
you get
is.
something out of it.
Yeah.
I like the history piece. Throw some stuff in there on that. And I don't know where people are getting their weather from nowadays.
I mean, I also sometimes ask Alexa, just how hot is it outside? And she tells me, yeah.
Does she? She
She's
sounds
not
like an
accurate,
interesting people.
But she gives me something.
She gives you something.
What does she say? Keep your door closed, Mandee. Don't go anywhere. Stay home. Have iced tea.
But yeah, so that's how we do that as far as the live stuff goes.
Well, it's like you said too. I mean, we're both actually all of us in the room here are old enough to know that if you wanted to produce anything, it had to be in a room with a lot of stuff. And now I have it to where at home I can I have almost a carbon copy of things where I can produce station promos at home. I need to cut something, just send it to the station.
Ashley's here. She has a photo
That's it.
shoot.
I'm here.
So speaking of home studios.
Well, no, it was yesterday. During yesterday's thunderstorms.
Oh, yeah.
So we're not to take a severe left, but I'll do it anyway. So during Friday we had thunderstorms, and I guess about 2:00, it's we're hearing the thunder, and on our floor. There's massive remodeling going on. And I said to somebody, is that the remodelers or what's going on? No, that would be thunder. That's thunder, Chuck. So
Y'all at the station?
yes. And there was a power surge. The team was knocked off a couple hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We have our backup generator. Paul has a backup generator. So if things go down, both studios are lit.
Yes.
And all of the internet connections are live. But there have been times in the past where it hasn't happened a lot. Well, actually, Melissa and Jeff had it, I think, Monday, where they had the battery powered lanterns. They were doing news. Yeah.
Well, we have covered a lot today.
Yeah.
I was at KTBB back in, this would have been probably 2006, 2005 maybe.
Okay.
You're talking about the weather dog. So I was going around and talking, trying to market the station. So we were going on people's morning shows on Fridays and just, meet and greet and, take Stormy to meet some folks, and we were at KTBB that morning. Mike Edwards was there, and I think this was the morning that a drunk driver had hit that power pole in front of the radio station.
Oh, my goodness.
And so they were off the air, and the backup, whatever the backup power that they had, was not capable of powering much more than the STL and a few items in the control room.
Mm-hmm.
So they could either get something to the transmitter with very minimal other elements, or that was it.
That was the one. That was the one that made Paul get the big generator.
Yeah, and so I'm running around over in the studio and trying to wrangle this dog, and the engineers on the phone, and I forget who all else was there.
What did Stormy do?
What do you know this?
No, but I'm thinking it has to do. Does it have to do with dog urination?
Stormy
perhaps?
did have a biological event there at KTVB, and I'll leave it at that.
Was it sponsored?
It was not
we are on
sponsored.
radio.
It was not sponsored, but there should have been a cleanup team involved. Surf Pro might have been needed at the time, but it's
those
dark.
hazmat boys.
So imagine, I wasn't going to go into that, but since you asked, so it's dark and it's hot because there's no air conditioning.
Right.
And this
By the way, you're
dog-
talking about the atmosphere.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Remember,
Yes.
I'm radio. I'm your more baser cousin.
There you go.
I'm like your uncle that you say starts
Yeah.
talking at Thanksgiving. It's like, just shut up.
Let's sit him over there.
We need to
Sit
cut
down
him
over
off
there.
right now. No more wine for Uncle Chuck.
What's in that cup? Oh, right. It's
Oh,
coffee.
that's right. Yeah. So anyway, so that the power's out to the building,
Yeah.
and air conditioning's been off for about 4.5,
So it's
5
hot.
hours. Oh yeah, man.
And we have
Toasty.
a biological
we
event.
got a biological event with this dog at the in the hallway at the radio station. So that's always that is one of my larger memories in my mind of Stormy. To be honest with you, that and him eating. People always bring food to the TV station, or we always have an event. You got a telethon, or you've got something going on, and there was a lot of sandwich trays in TV and radio,
Sure.
probably too, for that matter. But
Oh, yeah.
one of the key points to a sandwich tray is a toothpick.
Oh,
So Stormy loved to get up on tabletops and go into these sandwiches, but he would take no note of the toothpick that's in the middle. So I think he had at least one, maybe two intestinal surgeries because he had eaten these toothpicks.
Okay, I take my laughter back. I feel bad.
So
I feel like the world's worst human.
between the toothpicks and the cigarette butts that he would eat out there on the side of the loop, and they would take him outside to walk him, and people are flicking those cigarettes out. You don't realize how many butts are out there until you're going to the vet with the dog, because
my
the dog
goodness.
consumed one of these. So
Was
little
the-
things that you learn about.
The dog was owned by the TV station, right? So the TV station, I'm guessing, is footing that bill, not dog.
I know I did not foot the bill.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I don't
I was
know
just
who was paying the vet bill, but I was not.
Maybe that was sponsored.
I bet it was. Could have been. Promotional consideration paid by. Insert.
Oh, my goodness.
Biological event. And I thought coffee drop. Mandee had the.
That was Kenny. Kenny coined that term.
I thought.
Nope. Kenny coined that term. I just needed to leave and excuse myself to go to the ladies' room, and Kenny called it
said
a coffee drop.
Coffee drop. I like
And I
that.
said, well, let's write that down.
I like that. That's
Could we
good.
sponsor that?
I bet you could.
We could.
You could sponsor a lot of things.
We could.
'Cause-
We were joking about sponsorships
'Cause
earlier.
after two of these, I'm fixing to have a biological event myself. So
That was one of the funnier moments
Yeah.
with the dog, I have to say.
Yeah.
So you have your real estate practice, you're doing the weather. I'm probably going to be a little bit more nosy, but are you able to monetize what you do on the weather? Do you have sponsors? Do people approach you and say, Doc, I think you would do a terrific job and I would like to be a sponsor of what you do?
Yeah, I've had some people approach, and I've been involved in some sponsorship stuff in the past. I'm pretty protective of it, to be honest with you, because of it's got my name on it, and so I'm a lot more guarded about it than maybe some would be. But I'm open to that. I think it just needs to be probably the right situation for me to involve in that.
I totally get that. When I did endorsements at the stations, I didn't take everything that came across my desk. I was pretty protective of if Mandee Montana's going to put her name behind this, it needs to be something I genuinely really like and would tell a friend, you should go check this out.
Because when you put your name on something, you're endorsing that item or service, and I think that's, I'm probably more sensitive to that than a lot of people would be, which, my loss, because I'm maybe not taking advantage of, but you get a lot of
fly by night feel type situations.
Yeah, and you get approached by people who, I think there's a lot of scammers out there too. I get emails and messages from stuff that I know it's got to be an absolute scam.
I get hit up in Instagram all the time from people who want me to be their ambassadors. I reached out back one time and it was like, yeah, we want you to buy our sunglasses and then talk about them and then we'll send you a free pair or something. And I was like,
no, thanks,
that's not how this works.
That was it? Wow.
Well, I've since been offered several other things and I'm just like, no.
Yeah. So I think there are opportunities out there and some things that may present themselves later on down the line. So to answer your question, there are some opportunities out there.
Okay. I'm just wondering, and I thought, well, I thought, am I going down the path in which a GM had told me in the beginning, okay, we don't talk about sex, we don't talk about religion, we don't talk about this. And by the way, on our radio station, we never talk about money. Yes, sir.
Yes. Although the sales department talks strongly about it.
Yes.
Yes.
It would always be situations where the afternoon guy, this is my first station, would pop off about, there'd be, something on the news about, the cost of living is going up and people aren't making enough, and be, somebody needs to tell our general manager about that. And, of course, all sorts of seriousness would ensue. Like, we'd get the memo. Yeah, you jokers, nobody talks about this. All right, fine.
They're talking about it somewhere, just not
somewhere.
Here.
It's 5:00 somewhere. Somebody's talking about cash somewhere. Hey, so we started off talking about you being almost kind of all things, Swiss Army knife of a person, but internet weather, the mobile DJ, TV. How old is your little girl? What about the daddy thing, huh?
That's great.
How old is she?
Lex is 10. She's great. She's never met a microphone she didn't like either.
I was going to ask.
Never met a mic she didn't like.
Has she said to you anything about wanting to get into broadcasting?
We've done some videos from time to time. I remember back during COVID, we did. She would set up on our mailbox, and we call it our official storm watching post because it's a brick mailbox cover, and you can sit a couple people up on top of that thing, And we did a couple of videos during COVID. I'll always remember, and I've got so much video on my computer of us and her. It's an amazing time to have all of these moving pictures. I would love to have some moving pictures of my grandparents.
Right.
We've got years worth of video and pictures of our generation and the last, but none of the previous, or so few of the previous. But so she enjoys talking on the microphone. She'll go with me if I'm playing what few things I play nowadays. If I'm doing a dance here or there, she's always like, let me say a few things. Let me say something.
Aww.
So she enjoys that part of it. But the daddy thing is great. It's absolutely the best things ever in life.
As folks would say. Asked me about it. I said, well, remember, Rosanna's husband. That's what I am.
It's a good thing though.
It's a great gig to have.
It's a great
my best gig.
Yeah, it's been one of the more shocking things of life, to be involved with that.
Well, you had mentioned about you and Alyssa going out, in severe weather and checking things out. I can't tell you how many times, especially in the beginning when I was doing mobile DJ stuff, Rosie would come with me.
Yeah.
And I would lean over, and it would maybe be that time of a dance where it's starting to break loose, and I maybe could break loose like weddings. And I would say, I'm going to play Macarena, so if they don't dance, let's run. we're going. But my first 3 years, she would go a lot. And she's always been wonderful about me being in radio. She would say, indulging your passions.
Yes.
And I would kiddingly say, well, thank God you didn't want a lawyer.
Yeah, it's true.
You get a tramp disc jockey for life.
Well, the mobile DJ thing, that was so much fun. We had some great times doing that.
I loved doing it. My last party was Mandee and Aaron getting married.
Yes.
Really?
He
That was your
DJ'd our
last.
wedding.
That was your last gig?
My last gig. I kind of.
From my junior prom to my wedding.
That's right.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
We're
a
buds.
What a crazy evolution, because when I started playing parties, it was mostly 45s, and there were CDs in there, but if you didn't have the right music, there was no going to your phone and downloading. It was strictly you had it or you didn't have it.
When I got started in 1995, I said I want to do this, but it took me a couple of years to plan because it was saving for gear.
Oh, yeah.
I had one of those big DJ coffins.
Oh yeah.
Which it was heavy and clumsy, but I felt it looked impressive, so I had that. And I had, because it had a couple of slots in there that fit commercial CD players.
Yes.
And I got, like for $150 when Sears, I think it was Sears went out of business in town here. I got them, but acquiring the music, I was at KNUE.
Yes.
So I would have friendlies in the record business and in the music business,
Promo copies,
regional, national people, and I would say to them, we added the latest Kenny Chesney song. Can I get this? And most of them would say, here's our catalog. Just spread it out. And so it took a couple of years I would accumulate, and then it was, I put together a tracking system, but it's amazing because now my music library is on a thumbnail.
Isn't that crazy?
Where when I started, I probably would fill the second section of our van because it was all the CDs were numbered and they were in each carrier. I think was 20 CDs. Mm-hmm. It was a load, but yeah.
I know Kenny and Alyssa too. They both laugh at me, but because I don't know that I know I wouldn't be comfortable playing off of a laptop, because a lot of these people that are playing parties nowadays, they walk in with a laptop and that's it. And I'm walking in, I look like the Smithsonian coming in with 300 something CDs.
Mm-hmm. So you're still playing CDs?
I do. I play CDs. I have my computer and I'll throw a lot of stuff. If it's anything remotely current, it's going to be on my iTunes. Which in and of itself, I know some people who are doing that kind of stuff are like, it's playing off of iTunes. But
I used iTunes. I had a laptop and 2 iPods when I did it.
Yeah, Alyssa bought me an iPod. Alyssa has bought every piece of technology that I have utilized in my life has come from her. Mm-hmm. She bought me my first iPod. She bought me my first MacBook.
Cell phone?
She did. And I'll tell you how. Back then, this would have been 2005. Papa John's, it's going to be good when it starts off with Papa John's.
Yes.
Papa John's had a promotion where if you buy a pizza and 2 sides of breadsticks, you get a BlackBerry.
What?
You got a BlackBerry.
Somebody was desperate.
Yeah.
So Alyssa finds this. She finds this coupon, and I order breadsticks and have it sent to the TV station one night. And I promise you, I submitted that and got myself a BlackBerry.
Wow.
That is the same number that I have on this iPhone now.
Oh my goodness. When I was named program director of the ranch back in 2006, my wife said to me, you're going to want to have a cell phone. I was like, well, the station provides it. Did you not want a cell phone? And I said, I don't know. She goes, well, here. And it was the clam type.
The flip phone.
Yeah, flip phone. And she goes, well, it takes pictures. And I said, what do you mean it takes pictures? You can take pictures with the phone. And I go, Well, that's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That's ridiculous. I'll need the phone. I'm not taking pictures. That's a stupid idea. That's a dumb idea, Rosanna, but I'll take the phone.
Yes.
So, I'm not. You would think that somebody in the technology, having technology around him would be more open, but no, sometimes I'm just not.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that I could do a party, what few that I do, and not have, I need that visual reminder of what I've got. And I see that those visual reminders come in the form of those spines on those CDs, because I know what I've got, and I've got a cataloging system that it was a barcode scanner that I was able to import all of the stuff. So I know what all music that I have with me, which is really cool, by the way. But to do a party on just a thumb drive or a couple of thumb drives or something along those lines, that seems hard.
I used to have all of
But
my...
a lot lighter.
Huh?
But a lot lighter.
My back would love it. And that's a part of the reason why I don't do as many parties anymore, because I just, lifting that stuff, it's not... there's a lot lighter stuff than what I have out there. I know there's, powered speakers and all this other kind of stuff, which I have powered speakers. I'm not that much of a
But they're probably not
ancient.
Tiny. You've probably still got the big speakers.
Yeah, I got larger stuff, but having to haul all that stuff around is it's challenging.
I don't know where to go with this anymore. Are we talked out?
Are we talked out? Anything else you want to add, Doc?
Yeah.
It's just good to be here with you guys. Thanks for coming and letting me visit with you a little bit.
Well, it's good.
I respect what y'all are doing here. This is fun.
Thank you.
It's always good to see you. And it's, like I said, it's what we find out when we do these is that there's different intersection points and, all of our relationships, and we tend to learn something new. So it's great. And we thank you for coming here. Hey, and giving your time on a Saturday, no less.
Absolutely. This is fun. It's crazy because this type of business, it's not, and it's like anything else in life, it's never what you know, it's who you know, and it's cool to have crossed paths with you guys over the years, in whatever capacity we were in at the time. It's fun to be a part of this fraternity, type thing. It's kind of what it is.
It is. Yeah, it's special.
All the people that were involved in this over the years, I'm honored to even play a little role in that,
I feel the same way.
This has been another episode of The Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
This is our show to explore radio,
Podcasting.
Gear.
And the gearheads that use the gear.
and making money with a hot mic.
And other stuff in between.
We'd love for you to follow us on social media as well. Follow us on Facebook at The Unknown Morning Show and Instagram at The Unknown Morning Show. See us on YouTube at The Unknown Morning Show.
Thank you for listening to The Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
I'm Chuck McKinley. And remember, be kind and rewind.